take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube, if you will, for me. And rate the show 5 stars ever that you get your podcast. What is going on? Hopefully, y'all had a great weekend. We have Bears training camp and news that I'll be breaking down on a separate podcast. But a separate episode will break down more of that training camp stuff that you're accustomed to getting. But we still have to finish down our countdown to camp, our position profiles. So with this, we're going to be really focused more so on the defensive ends. Are we going to sign a defensive end and other pieces with that? And then we'll have camp on the other episode. So make sure to like, make sure to subscribe so that you can get all the training camp episodes, because information is a lot more difficult to get right now since they're starting out with the private ones rather than starting out with public. That's what I thought that they were going to do, but instead we have the private ones first just for the official Chicago media. So we'll have to scrounge and pull together more of those to get a full picture. But let's get started. Like, as you know, we've broken down every single position group for the Bears heading into this season. And like we always do, we're going to talk about the departures, the depth chart, the breakdowns, the over-unders, and answer the question, did we get better at the defensive end position? So today, just defensive ends, and let's break into it because we just got defensive ends and quarterbacks left. So let's go with our departures. And we've really only lost 2 people, if you really think about it. We lost Yannick Ngakoue and Rasheem Green are the 2 big defensive ends that we lost. Now, I put a question mark next to Yannick because my whole question with that is he actually going to be back for the Bears? At this moment, Bears have a roster size of 89. They worked out Shaquille Quarterman, the linebacker, but obviously they did not sign him. So why do they have the 89 spots? They're clearly looking at potentially bringing someone in, and Yannick Ngakoue just was posting some videos showing, hey, I'm back. And we've talked about this too, that he seems like he could potentially be an easy person to bring in that understands the system, knows the people in the locker room, but he is coming back off of an injury. So the Bears would need to see, hey, I know that you look jacked and you're running around on a video, but can you actually play football? Are you actually in football shape? That's another big question. But let's go into the depth chart. What did the defensive end depth chart look like last season? We had Walker and Ngakoue as our starters last season, but then our backups, the primary backups, Rasheem Green, and at this time, Trevis Gibson was our primary backup. And remember, like, I love seeing these old rosters just like, oh yeah, Trevis was going crazy during the preseason. He was going crazy during the training camps and ultimately was cut by the end of the training camp. And then also we had Dominique Robinson as the 3rd string, but then ultimately he stayed on the team. And then Terrell Lewis was another person who was tearing up the preseason, as well as DeAnthony Jones and Jalen Harris. Remember all these names? It's kind of, especially this position, was a blast from the past of what was going on during training camp. And then now we go to this year, where we have DeMarcus Walker, Montez Sweat as our new starters. Definitely an upgrade there. And then we're talking about Dominique Robinson and Jacob Martin, and then also our backups, so our 3rd strings. And yet again, I pull all this from our lads, so that's why, to me, I'm like, Austin Booker should be up, but Austin Booker might just start out as that 3rd string and then have to beat out a veteran like a Jacob Martin. And then 3rd strings are Khalid Kareem. He was someone that we got last year at the very beginning after the preseason that was just kind of on this team for a little bit, bounced around. And then the 4th stringers, Jamari Croma as the undrafted rookie free agent that I know a lot of us are excited to see, and Daniel Hardy is the other 4th stringer. So we're talking about this team overall. Like, it's a new look with this defensive end group, and rightfully so. This defensive end group last season did not do much until the addition of Montez Sweat. Now, when we go into the did we get better, I will add Montez Sweat as a person that we had last season, just since we traded for him And so that's where that one's a little bit difficult, because it's like, okay, we didn't have him at the very beginning, but we did have him throughout the season. So let's talk about these player breakdowns a little bit more and talk about our players. And let's start out with Montez Sweat, 27 years old from Mississippi State, entering his sixth season, 6'6", 262 with a cap hit of $25 million. Now, last season had his best season, 57 tackles, 12.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 64 pressures. He had a PFF grade of 74.8, which was good for 33rd in the NFL, and also had a pass rush win rate of 12.7%, which was good for 41st in the NFL. He also signed that 4-year, $98 million extension in 2023 as well. But really, the thing that I didn't see as much is he's always been known as an elite run defender. And what we saw last year, I thought he looked really good in run defense, but I didn't see that eliteness. Not saying like something's wrong. We've seen that consistently out of him, always a good run defender. But also we're hearing people say too, he's asked to do different things when he was at Washington. Hey, play more of the run. Other people will get theirs. And now he is the guy on the defensive line. So go and attack. Go get your sacks. And we saw that. Now he was used more as a pass rusher, and he stepped up to that. He's been a crazy athlete his entire life, and also, obviously, 6'6", 262, but he's also fast, and you see that speed. And really, to me, I thought that he played elite last season. I know that the PFF grade didn't show that, but I felt what I saw was Montez Sweat kicking it up, and it wasn't the same Montez Sweat that we've seen other years with Washington. And that's why my question is, can he continue to duplicate this same elite performance? This is his first year ever getting double-digit sacks in a single season. He's always been consistent with production. He's one of 3 pass rushers to have more than 7 sacks in 5 consecutive seasons? Montez Sweat is just consistent and and looked very, very good for the Chicago Bears. So that's my big question is, can he duplicate this same elite performance? Because I think that they put so much on his plate, because they're like, listen, you're the only guy that can actually generate some form of pressure. Good luck. So Montez Sweat, I really liked him last year. And I think, to answer my own question, I think he's going to be good. I think we're going to see him probably get around 10 sacks, but I don't think 12.5 would be amazing if he was able to duplicate that again. But if he got 10, I'd be more than happy with that. He's a good player, and so you know he's going to do good things. So zero concerns. I just, you sign good players and they'll do good things. That's a general motto of this show. But let's go to another player, and that's DeMarcus Walker. And I must have not updated his college that he went to, but going into his 8th season, 6'4", 280, 29 years old, cap hit of $8.66 million, which also goes down next season, the way that the Bears have this contract structured. Last season, even though that he was a starter, 30 tackles and 3.5 sacks, 47 pressures, which got to give it to him. That ain't bad. And also had 59.1 PFF grade, which is good for 84th at the defensive end position. Last season, though, 10.8% pass rush win rate, which was 64th in the NFL, and also played 638 snaps at defensive end, 74 at defensive tackle. And we know this guy. Everybody likes him because he's a trash talker. He's a vocal guy. He talks big game. But to me, can you suffice as this number 2 defensive end? And I do think that he does provide good upside as a run defender. But we need people that can rush the passer. And I'll sound like a broken record. DeMarcus Walker, I like the idea of him playing some 3-tech, playing some interior, because at the Titans, that's where he looked really good, was when he was playing more so in the interior rather than defensive end. But he is a bigger body defensive end. He can absorb some blockers. And that's where I'm still iffy on DeMarcus Walker. And ever since we signed him, I was not super in love with this. But DeMarcus Walker, he needs to step up. he needs to show that he's worth the contract that he got. Now, yet again, it's not $20 million that he's getting, but you're the starter and you're talking all this trash. You got to back it up a little bit. 3.5 sacks. I mean, I like the pressure numbers with 47, but still 3.5 ain't that great. So yeah, he needs to step up his game because that's one of the biggest pieces. And he's someone that we did sign in free agency as a starter. So I expect him to try and get up to that. You need to play like the number 2 defensive end. I just don't have much faith that he is actually going to do that. Yet again, came off a career year at Tennessee, so it's hard to kind of expect the same. So, is there someone that can step up for DeMarcus Walker? And let's look at this. Now we have Dominique Robinson, who is our starter in his first season. Remember that. And then the second year, we're like, okay, maybe he can change. He's 6'5", 253, and we all remember him as the defensive end that was a quarterback, a running back, a kicker, right? Like, not actually a kicker, but he played all over the place. And we're like, he needs some time to develop at defensive end. And last season was terrible. Like, just absolutely terrible. 12 tackles, 0.5 sacks, 5 pressures, a PFF grade of 35.3. I've never seen a grade that low. And what helps with that super low grade is a 1.4% pass rush win rate, which was literally the worst in the NFL among all defensive ends that have played at least 140 snaps. That's terrible. That's terrible. And I know that he's a day 3 pick, and it's crazy to think he was our starter 2 seasons ago. He's still raw, and we talked about this with the defensive tackles. We know that we want to draft people and add people that we can develop. Now, with Eric Washington, can he get the most out of Dominique Robinson? And my big question is he done with Chicago? Do they look at him and go, listen, he just can't play, right? Like, we like the athleticism. We like this potential upside. But listen, we gave him a shot year 1. We saw him year 2, and it's not working out. Sorry, but we got to move on. Because you look at, well, Jacob Martin. What if you bring in Yannick Ngakoue again? Now, if you bring in Yannick Ngakoue, now you go, okay, so if we have Ngakoue and if we have Robinson, Robinson's probably going to be out because we have all these other players. So he might truly be done in Chicago. And honestly, I think that it's starting to go that way because if they end up signing somebody, then yeah, he's going to be the odd man out because, yeah, they're not getting rid of Booker. And also with Jacob Martin's more the back, like a solid 4th, 5th string defensive end. But let's talk a little bit more about Austin Booker. Someone that we really like coming out of the process. He was the edge overall number 10. He was the number 73 consensus prospect. And redshirt sophomore, 6'6", 245. He transferred from Minnesota over to Kansas, was still a backup, but at a 14.8% pass rush win rate, 10.2% run stop, 78.5 run defense grade, and 56 tackles, 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 27 hurries. This guy is the epitome of a raw prospect that has the length and frame that Matt Eberflus loves. 34-inch arms, and just looked good. I mean, I thought he looked solid in the run game and looked good in the run game. But also, there's so much room for him to grow. And I think when you have someone like Eric Washington, this is a perfect example. And that's why I also think Dominique Robinson might not be someone that is going to be on this team too, because they're going to say, listen, we have someone else that I want to put all my eggs like into this basket of Austin Booker because he could be something. Dominique Robinson did not look like he belonged on an NFL field last season. And the season before that wasn't great. Like he got both of his sacks week 1 in the monsoon game. After that, did nothing. So Austin Booker, to me, he is an instant upgrade over Dominique Robinson. Instant. And I think that he can take that over from him. So Austin Booker, super excited about him. And just the fact that he is just this talented player, I think that he could definitely develop into something. And I think this season too. I don't expect him to be absolutely dominant or take a starting job. I think that's too much. considering he wasn't even a starter at Kansas. I think that I would love to see him as that third defensive end, the fourth defensive end. The Anderson, for everyone that remembers Anderson back with the Bears where he got like double-digit sacks his first year with the Bears. Mark Anderson, that's his name. Like, that's what I am kind of expecting with Austin Booker. Mainly being that pass rush specialist that can come in and just say, hey, you attack the quarterback. You do one thing, you fly, you try and get them. Austin Booker, to me, has a good ceiling that I'm just excited to see out there. But with that, I don't actually have any profiles on Chroma or Jacob Martin as well. But all that you need to know, Jacob Martin, more of just a veteran that's kind of bounced around. He was with the Indianapolis Colts. Someone that I would actually say is a little bit lower than a Rasheem Green, in my opinion, but still like similar mold, where just you don't want them out there too much, but you have them as this fourth player that you can always kind of get better than. Then Khalid Kareem, we saw him out there a little bit, kind of similar mold as well. Not too much to expect. But Chroma is the big person to keep an eye out for because he's so athletic. And I got to say, though, when I put on the tape, I wasn't a big fan. I wanted to be a fan because I'm like, man, this guy is a crazy athlete. That the testing, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but his athletic testing were just through the roof. And I think also he's going to be someone that turns some heads in training camp just because of his speed. And we know that they can't really block people until pads are on, and even then, they're still not fully blocking people. But still, Chroma is someone to look out for because, yet again, you have someone that has the NFL athleticism at the defensive end spot. Can he turn into anything? Because you look at the depth of this, he can start to replace some players, replace a Khalid Kareem on the practice squad, replace a Dominique Robinson if Booker shows to be, hey, him and Martin can be your 3 and 4, and then you have Chroma as your 5th, right? That's some stuff that you can kind of look out for if Chroma starts to look better. But he's definitely someone to just keep an eye out for during training camp. And so far, I haven't heard anything too much from Chroma. But let's talk about overs and unders before we get into the final slide of did we get better. So to start things off, last season at defensive end, our sack leader had 12.5 sacks, with it being Montez Sweat. So the question, do you think that's going to go over or under 12.5 sacks for our leader in sacks? And for me, well, I already mentioned this. I already kind of gave this away. I think that Montez Sweat is going to kind of get back to how Montez normally is. I still think that he's going to break double digits. I would love to see that. I'm going to say that it'd be more 10, so I'm going to say under for that. And next, Pro Bowls at 0.5. And I wish I had the defensive end roster in front of me. But I tell you, if this defense is good, Montez is going to go as well. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of other people that are getting sacks that I think just get in over Montez Sweat, because we all know defensive end, it's all about the sacks. It's all about how many times are you bringing down the quarterback. So I'm actually going to go under for that with Montez Sweat. And free agents. Are we going to sign a defensive end free agent before the start of the season? I put it at 0.5. And here's the latest. Brian Poles was saying, hey, we're not really looking at a defensive end. He was asked directly about this. Now, to me, it sounded more matter of fact. It sounded like he was kind of certain, like, hey, yeah, we're not going to add a defensive end, which could mean good news for an Austin Booker, that, hey, he looks better than we expected. Or maybe Dominique Robinson looked better, or Chroma looked better as a 5th defensive end. I'm still going over, though. I still feel like it's smart to just stockpile defensive ends, stockpile edge rushers. And maybe it was also, we know how Ryan Poles is with setting up a big play. Maybe that's part of it, where if Yannick Ngakoue is like, hey, his camp's saying, if you want me back, it's $8 million. And the Bears are like, no, you're injured. You're coming off of an injury. We're not going to do that. So maybe it's a play with that. I'm going over. I'm saying I could still see them adding a defensive end just to try and bolster this front. And last but not least, number of Dominique Robinsons on this roster. I put the mark at 0.5, so over and under. Do you think Dominique Robinson will be on this team next year or not? And to me, I don't think so. Even when you look back at the rookie season wasn't great. Rookie season when he was starting wasn't good. Second season in the system with more talented people around him. Everyone else got the Montez Sweat bump except for Dominique Robinson. Dominique Robinson, to me, I think is just showing that he's not an NFL player. So I think ultimately Dominique Robinson, I think he's going to be someone that gets cut, and the Bears ultimately are looking to essentially have Austin Booker as the new project defensive end rather than Dominique Robinson. So now it's time for the big question. Did we get better at the defensive end spot? So let's look at this. And like I said, I'm going to add Montez Sweat into this, even though he's not in the official 2023-2024 graphic that I put together, but I'm still going to add him there. And I said this before, I do think that he's going to regress back to the mean. He's still going to play like a phenomenal player. I just don't think he's going to be at the elite level that I thought he was at last season. We also lost Yannick Ngakoue and Rasheem Green. Like I said before, I would take Rasheem Green over Jacob Martin. And that's saying a lot. I'm not a big Rasheem Green fan. I'm not a Jacob Martin fan. You can definitely get better. I do think Dominique Robinson won't be on the team, so you can pair up Dominique Robinson versus. So that's where I think ultimately Austin Booker, I think, is going to play better than Dominique Robinson, even though that we haven't seen a true snap. Dominique Robinson played like one of the worst defensive ends, and I think that that is a huge mark in the right direction and a huge progression with that. And then next is DeMarcus Walker. I don't expect some gigantic jump. I think he might look a little bit better than he did last season, optimistically speaking. But I look at this group and, the defensive line I am pessimistic about, I guess, as we're going through this. I actually say that this is going to be slightly worse because unless, and this is the big caveat, unless they do re-sign like a Yannick Ngakoue or a Carl Lawson or another defensive end. I think when you're just looking across the board, what we had last season versus this season, you can't say that, yet again, I think that Austin Booker is the biggest upgrade because you're taking Austin Booker over Dominique Robinson. But since we don't really have, yet again, I would rather take Rasheem Green over Jacob Martin, and I would like to have Yannick Ngakoue right now, which we just don't have. So this is another position, defensive line. Like we said, that's the big question for me going into this. And that's my second time that I'm like, that's negative, but everything else is good vibes. But like I said, training camp is already underway, is already getting started. We just have to cover the quarterbacks. And don't worry, I'll be pushing out some camp content for you to get you all ready for the Chicago Bears season because it is upon us. And with that, like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Rate the show 5 stars. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you know that she's a